tries to mug you? What? What if your government tries to throw you in a can? What? You're gonna want a shotgun. What? An automatic rifle. And a lot of ammo. A gun?
We're all set to riot. Buy a gun before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. They'll burn you out like a Waco. They'll stick your ass in a camp. 10-40 cops in riot gear, gonna kick your ass and laugh. The revolution is on its way. Better lock and load your AK. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. We're all set to riot. Buy a gun before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. They gave your money to the banksters. They stole your pension funds. It's time that we took to the streets. It's time we had our turn. A revolution is on its way, and the founding fathers would say, buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. You gotta riot in the streets. Revolution's not clean and neat. You gotta riot in the streets. Revolution's not clean and neat. You gotta drag 'em through the streets.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. This is PrimerTime Live. My name is Michael.
Hey, and I'm Dan. How you doing, Michael?
Not too bad, Dan. What's going on with you?
I'm doing great, The weather's been warmer. Got to
It's
target
been
shoot a little
beautiful
bit.
here.
Got to target shoot a little
Did
bit
ya?
this week. Yeah, sure did.
How'd you do?
Not too good. Nothing to brag about.
Well, you know.
We have our
You know
days.
how you get over that? You practice.
We have a couple of special guests again with us tonight.
Let's
Your
bring him
brother,
in.
your brother Nick. How you doing, Nick?
Hey, Dan, doing good. Michael, how's it going?
Pretty good, Nick. What's going on with you?
Just another day in a Korean paradise.
Sounds like fun. And we also have our reloading specialist, Hal, with us tonight. How you doing, Hal?
I'm doing just fine. How are you guys doing?
Oh, good to hear you tonight.
Michael, the first thing I want to talk about tonight is this new place you got in Texas called Double Shotguns and Liquor.
Double Shotguns and Liquor. It's one of the finest establishments located in Schulenburg. And like the name says, you can get ammunition and liquor all in the same store. It's a testament to freedom in the United States, and particularly in freedom in the state of Texas. So next time you're in the mood for a bottle of rum and box of 38, Double Shot Liquors is the place to be, Schulenburg, Texas.
Please.
I'm telling you, that's pretty nice. In New Jersey, you can't even pump your own gas, and in Texas, you can buy, liquor and bullets at the same place. You can actually buy a gun in there. I just didn't have enough time to fill out the 44473.
So they actually sell firearms in there also.
Absolutely. They sold beer, wine, liquor, ammunition, and firearms. Now I will say the firearms and the ammunition were lower end, but, they worked.
What a place to visit if you're suicidal.
Yeah, you probably won't get much luck visiting there in that kind of situation. They'll probably sniff you out pretty quick.
Yeah, I think this place is playing on some notoriety, and I think they did well. It's not a super fancy shop, but there were people in there when I went in there, so that means something, I think. Which is kind of the exactly diametrically opposed to scumbags in
Starbucks.
Backstreet's Pub's what you get into out there, right?
That's right. Backstreet Pub in Clemson, South Carolina. I would like to encourage all of our brothers in South Carolina to not spend any dollars at Backstreet Pub. Backstreet Pub recently put a sign up, and by the way, the sign was not in accordance with the South Carolina state laws, but basically they said that if you're a concealed carry or concealed weapon permit holder, don't shop there. Don't patronize his business. He doesn't want your business. And proceeded to call the owners of CCWs, he proceeded to call them douchebags. And well, I'll tell you what, there's a little rating system called Yelp. It's for rating restaurants and rate them on their food, their service, and all that. And he had a 4.3, and well, he's currently sitting at a 1.4.
Well, so you can go online and rate his restaurant, is that correct?
That's right. And it looks that people have kind of, democratic society and all that kind of noise, they're voting with their keyboards this time. I suggest you vote with your wallets anytime you can to purchase up, but these people have decided to vote with their keyboards, and I'm guessing if they're writing a poor review of this place, they're not going to eat there.
That's how I feel about Dick's Sporting Goods. Just exactly like what you just said.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned Dick's, Hal. That place is they were part and parcel to raising prices when the scare on black guns hit a couple summers ago. They at least in Texas, in my area, they had raised all prices on AR-15s and doubled prices on ammo at a minimum in their stores.
Nick, in my place, the first thing they did when that happened was pull all the AR-15s off the shelf. And then people screamed so damn loud, they put them back on. But that pulling it off the shelf, that did it for me. We don't have anything else to talk about. That lets me know where your political persuasion is right there.
Absolutely. And another retailer like that is cheaper than dirt. They did the exact same thing. When the tragedy happened, they pulled all their weapons offline and raised all their prices by 30%. And then they continue to raise their prices. And I believe currently their prices are somewhere near 60 to 70% over what the price should be for most of their items. And for things that are in demand, they're 3, 4, 5 times the normal price.
But Michael, they're cheaper than dirt.
That's right. Keep swallowing the propaganda, people.
I actually used to get some good deals from that site a few years back, Michael, so I can't really...
a few years back, they had a completely different philosophy, it appears. I mean, it's sort of like... we were talking about this the other day. Kimber. Kimber's a well-known firearms company. And not only are they well known, they're very, very proud of their weapons. They charge.
They're not cheap.
They are not cheap. That's the best way to say it. They're not cheap. You're looking at $1,400 for an entry point into a Kimber 1911. And Al, I sent you that photo. There was 15, 18 different brand new production pistols
that were junk. Cracks, gouges, crooked rifling. I mean, the chattered rifling, I think is the way they put it.
Chattered rifling.
I started looking at that, I went, you got to be kidding me.
Guns that are straight out of the box, straight out of the factory with rust on the stainless.
So these are Kimber firearms?
It was Kimber.
It was.
So stay away from Kimber. Good grief.
And a little interesting side to that. After that, I mean that really shocked me. I mean, I'd heard complaints about Kimber, and I'd always chalked it up to kind of like buyer's remorse. Oh damn, I shouldn't have paid $1,750 for that pistol. That costed me $1,750. But this, I always chalked it up to buyer's remorse. Somebody just has like some sour grapes over it. And then you see this. So I had to do a little bit of searching on this. And it turns out they've got a fellow named Cohen at the helm of that, fine Irish name Cohen. And it turns out this isn't the first firearms company he's run into the ground. He did the same with SIG back. SIG a few years ago had a really, really nice reputation as fine handguns. And then their quality control took a dive, and he was at the helm when that happened as well. And kind of makes me wonder, is this guy all about the money, or is he actually pursuing a goal to ruin companies.
Destroy them or buy them out. How many of these companies been bought out now? I wonder.
Well, what is it? Freedom Group owns 27 either major firearms or firearms accessory manufacturers, and I'm not talking itty bitty ones. These are big names.
I read somewhere where George Soros was buying up a bunch of gun places just so he could put them out of business.
No, that's who he was. He started up an equity fund, or I don't know what kind of fund it was. Actually, I'm not the money man, but it brought up 27 basically different companies, and that was George Soros' company, and then he sold it off to another company called Cerberus, and now Cerberus holds a Freedom Group, and I think they're slowly liquidating companies from the major holding, but it's kind of a situation that they get bought up and then the quality drops dramatically, which is something that as enthusiasts of this and seeing what recently happened, we should be aware of that guns and firearms that were produced during this last rush, they may be lacking some quality control.
I'm sure they are, Michael. Compared to firearms that were produced 50 years ago, there's no comparison, really.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
That brings up.
I was going to say, Dan, you've got quite a bit of these new black rifles that have been produced that were so hot for a while. I've seen guys reporting things like bolt failure and firing pins that are marred easily and rendered inoperable. So that's something to consider too.
Well, I've seen lower receivers on AR-15s that are cracked after dropping them, and I'm talking about just one of the stories I was reading was a guy who had bought 10 stripped lower receivers, which to somebody who doesn't know, a stripped lower receiver would be just the part that has the number. There's no springs, there's no pins, there's no trigger, there's no nothing. It's just a hunk of metal that's machined in that fashion. And he dropped it and it cracked, and it was aluminum. And so I'm wondering what's wrong with this. Supposedly aircraft aluminum, highest grade stuff.
Was this a milled piece or a forged piece? What?
That's what they were saying. It was. I guess they were selling it by it dropping. I'm guessing it was forged. To me, it almost sounds like it was sintered. Like metal injection molding or something.
Something's not right about that.
But I mean, we've seen it with recalls on ammunition. The weapons themselves, you tend to hear fewer information about the recalls on that. Although usually companies are fairly honest and upfront when it comes to the recall issues.
Yeah, they can't afford to have a manufactured ammunition explode by the batch, because those batches don't always just go to one portion of the country. They can get split up and go all over. Yeah, I think Winchester on their M22 5.56 ammunition just ran a couple of recalls on some of their batches. The M22 is a 22 long rifle ammunition. That's right. And how that comes, it's actually marketed for the AR-15-22 family. Whatever brand you like, it's engineered for those. And they had some that said double charge. Right. That was what I saw. So Michael, maybe you can, or Hal, maybe you can go ahead and explain, since you're the reloading guru, what a double charge means for folks.
Well, double charge means if you've got a case that, I'm just going to give a random number here, say with a 22, that ain't going to take very much powder at all, but say you had 5 or 6 grains of powder in it, a double charge would be like 10 grains of powder or 12 grains of powder. It would be double the amount. Some cases, like a 9mm pistol, you can't double charge that. When you do a 9mm cartridge, you can put, when you load it with what they tell you to put in it, by the time you put the bullet in it, if you double charge it, the powder would just be running out onto the bench. So, but with a 45 or a 357 or a 38, before I started doing this, I always thought, well, hell, the thing would be full of powder, but it's not. You take a 45 and the case, when you've got it charged, ready to go, the case looks almost empty. It don't have very much powder in it at all. That's a big case and a big bullet. And a 357 and 38 is the same thing. You know, you put 5 or 6 grains of powder in that for just plink shooting. Guys that shoot 38s, they'll put 2 grains in it, and they shoot fine with just 2 grains of powder in it.
So this double charge of powder, then it creates tremendous pressures in the chamber.
Yeah, you know, there's the way that is, so much pressure is built up in the chamber for it to be correct. And if you put a double charge in there, you turn it into a damn bomb. I've seen some guns that Jerry, the guy that taught me to reload, he used to send me pictures once in a while, and it was pictures of guys that had you know. Pay attention to what you're doing when you're reloading your ammunition, because the amount of you don't want to go past what the maximum is ever. There's no reason to do that. You know, you're disrespecting your life, and you're disrespecting your weapon. You know, you're ruining your gun. There's no reason to do that, because they're designed to shoot at so many 1,000 pounds of pressure. That's what it's supposed to have. And if you start doing more than that, first thing you start doing is swell the chamber, and then it goes to hell after that. You know, it's just not a good idea.
Well, this brings up an incident that I've seen more than once. The 40 Smith & Wesson seems to be the victim of what we're talking about here more often than not, and it's not necessarily a result of double charges. It's a result of the pistols around them being inadequate. And
the pistols now?
The pistols being inadequate around them. From what I've seen in my experience is, most 40 Smith & Wesson pistols are really just a 9mm pistol that's been enlarged tolerance has been opened up to take a 40 Smith & Wesson cartridge with a corresponding lack of material in the pistol.
Right.
So they're thinner. The walls are thinner on them.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. Stress points are thinner, and so you can end up with the exact same problem that you have with a double charge in a factory loaded bullet.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And more often than not, I've seen it in 40 caliber Glocks. In particular, the Glock 23 is the one that seems to be the kaboom specialist.
So I'm curious about a 22 that has a double charge in it. What's that going to do to, say, like a Ruger 1022 with that bolt? Is it going to run your bolt, or?
Well, first thing you probably end up having, and Hal, correct me if I'm wrong, is you'll end up having a case failure inside the chamber. And what that'll do is I was going to say, Hal, what that's going to do is that can lead to some damage inside the chamber.
That sounds like what it would do to me would be blow the back. You know, the most 22 rifles I've seen where the bullet actually goes in, there's a lot of metal around it. But where you lock the bolt down, it seems to me like what would happen is it would blow the back of the case out.
Right, and then you could actually have damage to the bolt, or even inside that headspace area. You can throw the headspace off.
It sounds like you'd also lose an extractor as well.
Oh, yeah,
right,
and you know, it would overpressurize everything for sure. You know, the lead's going to go flying out the end of the barrel, but you know, what's it going to do? What's it going to do while it's doing that? Because it's got double the pressure that it's going to need to make that happen. Yeah, that's you know, you could mess things up. One of the difference between, you know, like a rifle primer and a pistol primer, you know, one of the differences is the rifle primer is just a little bit thicker. And if you were to put a pistol primer into a rifle cartridge, it would shoot, but you'll probably have an ice pick hole where the firing pin is. I'm serious.
Oh yeah, I know you are.
Yeah, that can actually turn that firing pin into a projectile as well.
Well, that's definitely moving the wrong direction.
Exactly. And for that firing pin to be moving backwards under pressure puts that shooter in significant danger.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. I don't want one blowing up on me. He said, that guy I'm talking about sent me some pictures. These guys that had shot overloaded, you know, double loaded and overloaded rounds. And I mean, it ranged from the gun just like a 44 Magnum, one of them was, and the guy shot it, and when he shot it, it blew it up, and it also set off 2 other rounds that were next to it, and it just blew the entire top of that revolver away. There was nothing gone. And then there was another one that a guy was shooting some heavy load, like a 500 Smith & Wesson. I don't know what it was. It was a big gun. And he had stuck his finger up where it was where the cylinder and the barrel go together.
The cylinder gap.
And the pressure blew his finger off. It just cut that sucker off. And there was nothing but just a jagged ass bone.
I've seen examples of that.
He was sending me that to let me know what was going on.
You've seen examples of that, Michael?
Lead split is one thing. You start blowing your fingers off.
Well, the lead splitting is usually a result of like cylinders being out of time. I mean, there is that release of gas that comes out of there. But I've been on the sprayed end.
It's out of time or worn too much. Once you shoot them, the cylinder rocks back and forth.
And I've been on the receiving end of the spray from a 22 long rifle. So
that ain't good either.
I'd hate to see what it would have been from
especially
like
for the guy that's shooting over next to you.
Now this the 22 that was recalled, the M22, that's a commercial 22. They recall that for double loads. Is that correct?
Right. That was a Winchester brand.
Well, I wouldn't shoot any M22 in any of my pistols or rifles now in that situation.
Not until they get that figured out. Certainly. And on the subject of recalls, Dan, a lot of firearms manufacturers do have the they do have the public's safety in mind because they get those recalls out, pretty wide and far. I don't know if y'all remember a couple years ago there was a story about the Remington's Model 710 that basically they got a hack job. 2020 went on and really attacked Remington, stating that they knew that they were making weapons with high failure rates and selling them to the public. And you got to be wary out there and take what you get from the media and then take what you get from the Consumer Product Safety Commission. That's a reputable source if it's not coming directly from the manufacturer that says, hey, there's a need to go ahead and turn in something.
I'll take the information every time from the manufacturer.
Well, see, and there's a double-edged sword with that, Michael, because not always does the manufacturer believe that their product is operating improperly. It takes some time before a lot of manufacturers will actually step up and say, well, okay, yeah, we've got a certain number of failures. Now we'll go ahead and issue the recall. When in all times it's they are having problems with it. They just don't necessarily want to call attention to their product.
Well, I know that every firearms manufacturer that I've ever dealt with on a recall issue for something, and the last one was on a Ruger SR9.
Okay.
The SR9 went through a recall, and actually it was for a trigger. They had an old one-piece style trigger, and then they updated to a two-piece style Glock trigger, and or a Glock style trigger, I should say. It wasn't a actual Glock trigger, and they were more than happy to service me in a way that I'm not used to with customer service in the United States. And the
you mean you actually got some?
I not only had customer service, I was well happy with the customer service. The turnaround was less than 2 weeks, and when it came back, it had I sent them the pistol to them without a magazine in it, and it came back with a magazine in the pistol and an extra magazine, and it also came back with a hat.
Oh,
and that was Ruger. And I'm very pleased with Ruger's customer service. Another company with good customer service would be North American Arms. I highly recommend them.
Oh, yeah. Well, Michael, you want to talk about shotguns for a moment?
That is our gun of the week. It's not a particular firearm, but we're calling this the firearm of the week, and we're going to call it shotguns just in general, and I'd like to talk about shotguns for a while.
That's good. I mean, I think it's a great all around weapon. You know, the military actually still has shotguns in its inventory, so I mean that shows you a little bit about the utility of the weapon itself.
What type do they have, Nick, in the military? Are they carrying pump shotguns or automatic?
Yeah, they're actually carrying buckshot guns, usually pump shotguns. So a lot of Remington 590s, Mossberg 590s, and then the Mossberg 510s and 500s.
No 870 Winchester?
Not that I've seen, but like I said, it's very rare. You're going to find those, traditionally in units that are tasked with performing crowd control tactics, things like that.
Well, that just lends to the versatility of the shotgun. The fact that it's used for crowd control shows that it's quite versatile, and well, just like everything else in the military and for larger corporations, it's cost effective. Somebody on a budget is with $200, you could be well armed with a goodly supply of ammo.
Certainly,
if you choose a shotgun. And there's many choices in a shotgun. I mean, there's everything from the 410, which is it's about the size of a fat pencil, and
what would you typically shoot with the 410 gauge? They also call it a 410 bore, but I think that's going out of the lexicon now.
410 is pretty versatile. A lot of people like to use a 410 on smaller game that they don't want to damage much meat with. It's popular for squirrels. It's popular for rabbits. The drawback to a 410 is you've got a much less reduced range. 410 is also available in a variety of handguns as well. Taurus makes a revolver called the Judge. Smith & Wesson makes a revolver called the Governor. And Cimarron Arms makes a single shot break open pistol that they call the Comanche. And that's three of them right off the top of my head. Can't think of any other 410 pistols right there. But usually the 410 pistols are also interchangeable with a 45 long Colt bullet.
Usually doesn't the old standby Bond Arms use a interchangeable barrel system on their Derringer type pistols?
Bond Arms has several different calibers, and 410 and 45 long Colt is one of their barrels. Usually you find 410s in a break action type, something that you would hit a release lever and the actual breech would open up like a single shot or the old double barrel style.
Right, so then you would actually be able to see that in something what we would call in the States a combination gun, where you would pair the 410 and say something like a 22 long rifle on the same platform and be able to shoot one and then the other.
That's right.
Right, Hal. The over under concept. I mean, in Europe, that's a hunting standby, and like Michael was saying, I think for squirrels and for smaller game, that's perfect. You know, having a 410 and then a 22.
I used to have one. A 410.
How did you like it?
I liked it. It shot great.
Do you remember the manufacturer on that?
No, I don't. It was when I was a kid.
I know Savage is making another one right now, and another combination, and it's in 22 and 410, and I believe they're wanting a little bit more for that. But that's not necessarily a defensive weapon. When you're looking at the $200 price range, you're more concerned about personal protection and home defense at that point, I think.
I agree, Michael, and that's for someone, a family that doesn't have a firearm to protect themselves, a shotgun is an excellent choice because anybody can shoot a shotgun, especially a top break. What are they called? New England Arms? Is that correct?
New England Firearms and Harrington and Richardson. Those are two of the main manufacturers of those simple break open single shot.
You have to break the shotgun open, insert the shell, close it back, pull the hammer back, and then pull the trigger. So it's all safe, basically.
Absolutely. You have to be conscious of every step in it.
Well,
Yeah, Nick, the one I had was
Springfield
Savage.
Armory makes one. Oh, you had a Savage Howl?
Yep, it was a Savage. I remember.
Okay. I was going to say that Springfield Armory makes one a little bit more updated now. It's called the M6 Scout, and that's also a 410 and 22 or 22 Hornet. So it's another rifle that's geared for the survival type folks, and it's actually a pretty simple design.
That's a neat design. That's got that very, very large. It's a squeeze trigger. Rather, you use your whole hand rather than just your index finger to pull it. And it's in a trigger guard that's large enough to get a gloved hand into.
Right, and what that basically does is it allows you, if you have an injury, to still be able to fire that weapon.
That 22 Hornet's a bad little boy.
So, I don't want clear me up a little bit on this trigger mechanism. Is it like a squeeze cocker H&K that similar to that, except it pulls a trigger?
It's just a large triangular shaped trigger that would run probably about I'd say 2/3 of the grip area of the shotgun, and it's just a great big lever that you squeeze the whole lever rather than pull.
Oh, okay. So it's a bar like object coming down. Correct?
Right.
Oh, okay.
It's almost like if you would imagine about a third of a pistol's grip, and imagine that being the trigger. So you don't actually have like a trigger in the traditional sense. You have more of what would be a pistol grip that you depress with the four fingers.
So you just squeeze it. That's cool. Pretty cool.
Yep.
Takes probably a little getting used to, but probably not much getting used to.
Oh, I wouldn't figure a whole lot. And the good thing is, of course, it comes with open sights.
That's right. It has to come with open sights. I'm gonna scream about that for a while.
Yeah.
So from moving from the 410, we'd move up into the 28 gauge, and 28 gauge is straight up honest, it's hard to find.
Rare birds.
Yeah, I think that those have largely gone out of circulation.
So you're actually moving down. You need to move up in the other direction to 16 and 12 to get bigger guns. I like the guns that make big dome, Michael, the 12 gauge.
That's right. Well, nice that you brought up a 12 gauge, but anything a 12 gauge would do, a 20 will do, and a 20 would be the next size up from the 28. And a 20 gauge shotgun is incredibly versatile, and I truly believe that it will do anything that a 12 gauge will do and save your shoulder.
Yep. And for those of us who have had shoulders,
brother.
That's a good thing.
There's no benefit in just carrying a 12 gauge. If it's too much for you, there's no shame in that. You have to carry what you're comfortable with, and a 20 gauge is, for a lot of people, is a definite option. 20 gauges more often come in a youth model. So for people of smaller stature, for women, a youth model shotgun may help them be more comfortable. They get a better purchase on the gun and to be able to hold it into the shoulder properly than they would with.
You don't necessarily lose any functionality as compared to that of a 12 gauge.
Absolutely none. It's minimal to the point of for most people they'll never notice the difference.
I'll tell you what you do pick up with a 20 gauge. When you're shooting slugs out of it, you pick up about 100 yards.
Now, is that I wasn't aware of that.
You take a lot of the guys here are using the old breakdown single shot 20 gauge you're talking about. Well, they're making them here now with a slug barrel on them and a sight, and you can mount a scope on it too.
So would those be smoothbore shotguns, or would they be rifled for the slugs?
It's a rifle with sights on it.
Okay, perfect.
And it also is drilled and tapped for a scope. And you can hold 3-inch groups at 200 yards with a 20 gauge slug. And that sounds pretty good to me, because that's a 20 gauge slug. That's a pretty good chunk of lead.
Yeah, that's an impressive amount. I'm not sure exactly on the weight of what a 20 gauge slug would be, but it's within an eighth of an ounce of what a 12 gauge slug would be.
Exactly.
It would knock about anything down, basically, I guess. Right?
Oh, that's right.
I sure wouldn't want to catch it.
Yeah,
and a 20 gauge. Put it this way: you can hunt deer with that. So shooting deer with a 20 gauge slug, that's just as effective as shooting with a 12 gauge slug.
That'd knock him down like a truck hitting.
And it works perfectly fine for home defense as well. And a nice thing is that everything that is made in a 12 gauge is also made in a 20 gauge.
Yep.
So that sounds like you're going to save a little bit of money too when it comes to actual purchase price.
Sometimes a 20 gauge is just a few dollars, maybe $20 cheaper. If you're looking at the exact same model, it might be $20 cheaper.
Well, you take that $20 and turn it into a box of ammo.
You would be able to take for 20 gauge shells. If you were to get just dove and quail, and maybe we'll get into what types of different ammo for shotguns are available in a couple minutes, but I think 20 gauge would get you 4 boxes right now.
Wow, for $20?
Maybe 3 boxes, which would be 75 rounds.
Yeah, because depending upon what you're looking at, some of the heavier gauges, that $20 will get you just about a box.
That's right.
So
That's right.
certainly like the cheaper price. Certainly like being able to turn it into more ammo for it.
That's right, and we can't stress buying enough ammo and using it. Become familiar with your weapon, know exactly what it does. So now that we know what a 20 gauge does, we'll move up.
Well, hey, wait a second. Let's talk a little bit something first, just so that consumers know, for distinguishing between the types of shells, they're also color coded.
They are color coded by companies, but there's no standardization of color.
Right.
I believe it's Federal. It's either Federal or Winchester. Their 20 gauges are yellow.
Right. That's mostly what I've seen. So, and that's going to stand out among.
But if you look at some of the lower priced ammunition, such as Rio, their 20 gauge shells are green.
Right, and I've seen that with a lot of the European 20 gauge rounds.
Well, there's high brass and low brass too.
Right,
the
exactly.
Low brass being the dove and quail load, and the high brass being the double aughts and slugs and stuff like that.
Right, and you're also going to have a smaller primer cap with the 12 gauge as compared to the 20 gauge. That brass is going to ride up higher from the bottom of the round itself.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Let's rip apart shells in a second. Let's cover what kind of shotguns that are still out there, because we still got a couple to go, and they'll go quick, because the next one is the 16 gauge, and unfortunately that's another lost shell.
That's rare bird.
It's hard. 28. They're hard to find, and it's a shame, because there were some very, very nice shotguns made in 16 gauge. One of the best would have been the Browning Sweet 16, which was an Auto 5 design in a 16 gauge, and a lot of people's favorite for a long time. A fine shotgun design, and just happens to be in a sort of obsolete caliber.
Yeah. It's certainly rare. I think I've seen one in the last 20 years.
I'd say in the last 5 years, I've seen maybe 5 boxes of 16 gauge, sitting around.
Yeah, that's not something you're going to get a hold of easily.
Yeah.
Hey, can we stretch this single shot 12 gauge thing out just a little bit? I'll tell you guys something that I saw. This is the thing that's got bad. They took a 12 gauge. This guy was using a 12 gauge. You can use any gauge shotgun, and they took a high brass shotgun shell, and they cut the plastic out from around it, and he took a flat ice pick with a flat tip on it, and pushed the primer out, and put a shotgun primer back in it, and put it down on a block of wood, put another piece and just tapped it, and that drove the primer in. Then he took the primer and put it into the shotgun, closed the barrel, lifted it up, and put, like you're going to shoot a black powder. He poured gunpowder down the barrel. You have to measure this out like you would for a muzzle loader. Put a rag in the barrel, dropped another rag, started another rag in there, and put a ball in it, and used a stick and pushed it down to the bottom, and that thing shot like a freaking cannon.
Sounds like you went back Revolutionary War style.
Sounds dangerous to me.
Yes, I agree with that one, Dan.
They do it all the time, but what's dangerous is if you don't know how much powder to put in it. But if you use a spacer, it shot fine. Then he turned around, did the same thing after he shot that in it. He turned around, put the thing back down in it and got it started and poured shot in it, folded it up, pushed that thing down, and then he had what he was shooting at. He had like a silhouette of a rabbit out there, and I think it was 25 or 30 yards, something like that. Boom! And he probably 5 or 6 of the shot hit the rabbit, enough to kill it. And that's just, I was amazed when I saw that. I said, "Look at this."
Well, it just shows their versatility, and
yes, sir.
From there we get into the most versatile of all, the thing that everybody knows, the 12 gauge. The 12 gauge is what in our culture people just refer to it as that. That's a 12 gauge is the shotgun.
That's right.
Some people don't know that there's anything out there other than a 12 gauge. These are made in single shot break open, double barrel, whether it's side by side, over or under. They're made in bolt action patterns. They're made in lever action patterns. They're made in semi-automatic patterns of various designs. There's some that are made like AR-15s. There's some that are made in the same style as AK-47s. There's some that are made in a traditional Browning Auto 5 style. There's many different variations. There's some with reciprocating barrels.
You could even go a step further and say that there are some that have 3 barrels on it, as they are called drillings.
That's right. Those are hard to come by in the United States. I do believe Chiappa has a drilling that they've got, which is a triple barrel. I think they call theirs the triple threat, and it's a little bit pricey.
Yeah, I could believe that.
How heavy is it?
I bet it weighs a ton, man.
It doesn't look light. It looks like it really requires a good sling.
And is it one of those Russian shotguns? Is that correct?
No, I believe these are made in Turkey. I believe
for okay.
Chiappa. Probably at I would say at the Yildiz factory is what I would guess. I'm not exactly 100% sure, so I don't want to make a claim on that and be wrong.
Yeah, a lot of the times when you do see one of those, it's not traditionally 3 shotgun barrels, although that there are a few out there. They'll usually pair up a side by side with a smaller rifle caliber.
And usually the rifle barrel is underneath the side by sides.
It could be either underneath or on the over under off to one side. So it just depends upon the manufacturer and what their preferred method of production is.
So there's a double barrel shotgun with a rifle barrel on it also.
Right.
It's the ultimate survival gun there, isn't it?
That is.
That'd be nice
to
pick your calibers with that too.
Right, and
get a custom made.
At least in Europe, they give you the option when you're buying those that you can actually select your calibers that you want. So for example, you want a 12 gauge. You want something to shoot foxes and rabbits with, that's like a 22 or a 22 Magnum. And then you also want something to shoot deer and or pigs with, and you get it in a 8mm or a 30-06. And they'll do that. That's really giving you the versatility of that shotgun, plus adding in the utility of having something for small game and then something for larger game.
Oh, that's very cool.
Now, with a lot of double barrel shotguns, you'll have 2 triggers, and 1 trigger fires each barrel. With a drilling, will you have 3 triggers, or how would you select which barrel you're going to use?
Actually, what you do is up on top, you'll have that slide release lever, and you actually have a detent button that helps you identify which trigger fires in succession. And some of them only have 1 trigger, some of them have 2 triggers, but the second trigger is what's called a set trigger. And that's mostly for use with the rifles, not so much with the shotguns. So if you have one of them that has 2 triggers, the first shot is typically the shotgun, and then the second shot can be one of the rifled barrels, And it's just a matter of what order you have selected for that to fire in. Because even some of your over-unders or your side-by-sides give you the option to fire one barrel first.
That's right. You can set them.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's just a matter of personal preference. I know that for me, if I'm using a side-by-side where the barrels are aligned horizontally, preferably I'll fire the right barrel first because I'm right side dominant. And I know that if I'm firing behind, I know that with the left side, it just gives me a little bit more when I lead on the next shot, and I'll have a good hit.
And even with shotguns, we have our PrimerTime 4 rules of gun safety, Michael.
That's right.
You know, the first one is you always treat each shotgun or firearm like it's loaded.
That's right. Every firearm is loaded until you actually take that weapon, physically open it, unload it, and verify that it is unloaded. Every weapon is loaded.
And the second one, of course, is muzzle direction. Always be aware of where that muzzle's pointing, as if it's loaded.
You definitely don't want to point the muzzle at anything you're not willing to destroy.
Yeah, and the third one is your target. You know, whatever you want to destroy, make sure the surroundings of that target and what's behind it, etc. And the fourth one that I really like coming out of your mouth, Michael. What is that fourth rule there?
Well, Dan, it's probably the most important rule. Please keep your booger hook off the bank switch. Guys, keep your finger out of the trigger guard. Keep your finger off the trigger until you are absolutely 100% ready to fire. Don't become a quotable statistic. It's just part of training. It's part of common sense. It's part of safety. If you need to and you don't know what to do with that finger, point it along the side of the weapon outside the trigger guard, just underneath the slide or just along the side of the receiver or the frame.
It truly is fascinating on the range seeing rookies that their finger always gravitates to the trigger. You can tell
straight to it.
times.
I see it at the gun shows myself, Dan. Sitting at a table, and I know everything that's sitting on the table is unloaded, and it's in a safe position because it's got a zip tie through it. But nonetheless, the finger always, I would say 99 out of 100 times goes right to the trigger.
That's amazing. It really is. You know the true firearms guys. If you hand them a firearm, the first thing they do if it's not tied up like you're talking about at a gun show, they'll inspect it to make sure it's clear, and they're always safe with it. I love to see guys come in the gun shop and me handing them a gun out of the counter. You know, me knowing that gun's cleared and everything, and they'll even check at the end. You know, that's the people that I really like to see come in.
Well, those are folks that probably have had a little bit of training and or value their own safety.
Yeah, well, they're treating it's a dangerous tool, but it is a tool. You know, gun control is a well-placed bullet, in my opinion.
It's nothing more than a drill that makes holes at 200 meters, at 100 yards. That's really what it is. It's a long distance drill.
And don't forget that is the express purpose of that tool. So, you know, it's not like it's the Phantom that does damage. It does what it's designed to do. So people have to take time to handle it safely, make sure that they're following those 4 rules of safety, and they'll be fine.
With modern firearms, the incidence of a weapon having a malfunction to where it discharges on its own is infinitesimal. I don't even think they actually put a number on anything like that. It's a 0.00001 kind of a number. There is no gun accident. It's gun negligence. It's firearm negligence. They don't just go off. Somebody has to pull the trigger.
No accidental discharge. That's correct.
That's right. So keep the booger hook off the bang switch, and everything's going to be okay.
That's right.
Now, switching gears for a second, Michael, I want to talk about this Russian ammo deal here. A couple of weeks ago, we were talking, and you were at the show, and you were telling me that people were saying, buy all the Russian ammo, buy all the Russian ammo. So, and now, as it seems, what's happened here, Obama's come out with an executive order is ultimately going to end Russian imports of ammo. Is that the way it's going to work?
I don't know exactly what it is. It's if it's actually going to end it, but it is an executive order, and it reads, Section 1, all property and interest in property that are in the United States that hereafter come within the United States that or hereafter come within the possession or control of any United States person of the following persons are blocked from and may be not transferred, paid, exported, withdrawn, or otherwise dealt in. And the person listed in the annex order, which would be the 7 Russian fellows that they put the sanctions on, persons determined by the Secretary of the Treasury in consultation with the Secretary of the State. And then it gives another subsection and says to operate in the arms or related materiel sector of the Russian Federation. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not exactly sure, but that's pretty ominous. So just a heads up.
Is this another deal like where Hillary stopped the return of those M1 Garands?
It sounds like it to me.
The Secretary of State can just jump right in there and say, no, we're not going to import any more Russian ammo or Russian rifles.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the actual, authorization or authority that this, individual has to stop that. But I'll tell you, there's a precedent happening for it in our government, so I wouldn't be surprised if it comes to pass.
Well, it's the policy by legislation, and we're having some real issues with that. I mean, we're seeing lots of unhappy with that all over. People in Connecticut are not happy with it. People in New York are not happy with it. Obviously, we saw earlier with the people in South Carolina weren't happy with a restaurant saying that. So
that's amazing in South Carolina that happened. That's gun.
Well, it's a good thing Charleston Heston's dead, because I'm sure he wouldn't be happy with it either.
Yeah, he was a good spokesman for the NRA. That's a fact.
He sure was. He was my favorite.
He looked a little more comfortable with a flintlock than Mitch McConnell looked.
Oh, he was real comfortable with firearms. I can guarantee you that.
I saw a video of Mitch McConnell at this recent CPAC conference, which just another round of gamesmanship, it appears. But he came out and was receiving some blah 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 from the NRA, and he came out and he looked to be afraid of that flintlock when he picked it up and held it above his head. Like he just didn't want to get any of that rifle on him. Ew.
And that's a symbol of his state. That's a Kentucky long rifle.
Yeah.
You would think that he would embrace his state's history, and
I think he embraces other things.
I'm sure he does.
I rest my case.
Well, hey, let's before we finish up, we're running close to end of time. Let's talk about what an actual consumer can look at in terms of prices on just a basic shotgun.
Well, we're looking at a wide range, and I'm not exaggerating by that. I mean, I don't believe the range gets any wider than in the shotgun market. You're looking at everything from $149 or $129 entry to things that are in the multi-thousands.
Well, if we're looking at something basic, which would be a break open, just a single barrel break open shotgun, what would that run most folks?
You're looking at right there at about $129 to $130 to $170, depending on location and, give or take 10%.
That's out the door. Is that correct, Michael?
That should be out the door.
And that's a gun that, not much goes wrong with one, so you could possibly find one in a pawn shop for much cheaper, possibly even $75, something like that.
Yeah, even at garage sales or estate sales too.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I said, he said, find one at a pawn shop for $75. I'll tell you what, you're not going to the pawn shops around here.
Yeah, I haven't seen, pretty much I'm seeing the minimum price for anything that goes bang is about $150. Mm-hmm. The single shot, the break open NEF or Harrington and Richards may be the exception to that because brand new they are about $130, $140, $150. But it seems to be that somebody who's got one is going to charge you about the same price for that online or, in whatever, however you find the face-to-face sale.
That's the best way to get them, Michael, face to face.
That's what I feel, Dan.
That's the only way to do it, man.
Well, one of the other ways I was saying was the estate sale. A lot of times, older hunters or older firearms enthusiasts, they'll have firearms that their spouses may not be comfortable having. That's why you see them lined up at these gun buyback things that the police and the sheriffs run, and it's a lot of older women that are going and turning these in.
Right. Nick, I just started foaming at the mouth.
Yeah, I mean that's a good opportunity for a savvy consumer to go ahead and be able to pick up usually a very well maintained and well kept shotgun, is to be able to buy it from an estate sale.
Yep, like perfect.
They are getting harder and harder to find, but in the price breakdown, you jump usually from the price range of the single shot break open. Usually you'll move right up into the pump shotgun area. And that's going to be anywhere from about $200 to $450, depending on quality, name, reputation that you're buying. Currently, some of the cheapest pump shotguns right now are a copy of a Remington 870 made by Hawk Industries out of China. Hawk Industries is Norinco, and they make an exact bang-up copy, parts interchange with a Remington 870. And it's a quality piece. Harrington and Richardson.
What's the price on the Chinese?
Harrington and Richardson markets one as the Partner shotgun, the Partner pump, and that comes in at $229.
Oh, okay.
So that's pretty affordable.
Yeah, that really is. And that comes in really close to what some of the more budget-minded American shotguns comes in. Mossberg has a budget line known as Maverick, and they're quite usable. I've got a Maverick myself, and a Maverick 88, and it functions fine. It does everything I want it to do, and I believe that mine brand new was probably $230, $240, and I paid $175 for it. Buying it used. Moving up from that, the price point of the pump actions, we'll move into side-by-side double barrels. And those usually end up being a little bit more, probably, depending on the manufacturer, anywhere between $400 to $1,000.
Yeah, certainly.
From there, price point moving up, you're probably into a gas-operated shotgun, which is going to be $400 to $1,000 as well. And then you move up into an over-under shotgun, which usually, for some reason, those always run about $500 to about $1,200.
Yeah, those are the shotguns that folks like to use for trap and skeet.
That's right. Not many of the lever action shotguns are being made anymore. Currently, I know of two that are being made, and they're both copies of Winchesters. And they come in, but you pay for the looks on these. And I don't have a problem with their function or whatever. That's not just the way I would choose to use a shotgun at that point.
Well, it's not like you're buying an English shotgun, so you're going to be in good shape.
It's a fast hour, guys. We are almost out of time. I want to thank Jules and the network UCY.TV. Pepper Chicks After Dark's coming up next. I'm sure everybody's looking forward to that. Nick, thanks for showing up. Powell, thanks for showing up.
Hey, thanks, guys. I want my buddy Chris, who's going back to San Antonio, Texas, to enjoy his 30 days of leave.
Oh, Chris has got 30 days of leave. That's great.
Yeah, he's
big
going to go
up
home
for
and hug
Chris.
on the kids.
30 days.
Enjoy. Hal, any final words?
Nope, no final words. Just enjoyed being here tonight. Thanks for having me on.
Appreciate it. We always like your knowledge about firearms, that's for sure. And enjoy talking to you offline as well.
So do I.
Michael, you get the last word, bud.
Well, Dan, I like to thank everybody for being here tonight. I'd like to thank UCY.TV. I'd like to thank Jules for putting in the hard work. Everybody, great programming here at UCY.TV. Prepper Chicks After Dark coming up next. Stick around. Thanks a lot, guys. Everybody go out. Buy a gun. Buy some ammo.
Take care.
Safe.